5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
They've landed.
You're in the right place. Online, on the web, and on air. All over the world.
Talk Radio.
You hear us, we hear you.
Yeah, good evening everybody, and welcome to another episode of the KTPF Community Talk Show, live on www.ktpf.co.uk. My name is Suzanne.
Well, I will be if I turn my mic on. I'm Steve.
This is a show that one regular describes it as like sitting down with a coffee with a group of friends. So I hope you feel that way this evening. Grab yourself a cup. For those who don't know, Steve and I started the KTPF, which stands for Keeping the Paranormal Friendly, back in 2007, with our mission to try and bring the paranormal world together, share our findings and help move us all forward, encouraging you to share information, advice and most importantly, friendship. Remember, collaboration, not competition. And although we concentrate more on the investigating side of the paranormal, this show incorporates a wide spectrum within this fascinating subject, from cryptozoology to UFOs. So if you have any questions, you can use the live interactive chat room and we will ask our guests for you, or you can call in and ask them yourself on 0844 414 3982. So later on we will have the events from the Paranormal Events for you, with a rundown of what's going on around the UK. And until then, what's coming up on the show? Well, tonight we've got, I'm really scared to be honest with you, because I'm hoping that the live stream, the internet, the Skype is going to be really good to me tonight, because we're talking about spontaneous human combustion, or SHC for short, which is a phenomena in which the human body will burst into an all-consuming flame without any apparent source or ignition. The first recorded case occurred in 1663, when a Danish anatomist reported that a French woman had been consumed by flames while she slept, leaving her straw bed untouched. Hundreds of reported cases followed a similar pattern. The victims are almost always alone, and coroners have always noted a sickly sweet smell in the room where the incident occurred. Interestingly, while the torso and head are usually burnt to ashes, the extremities and surrounding objects such as newspapers and clothing are typically untouched. These unusual circumstances have led to SHC receiving a lot of attention from those interested in the paranormal. But does it really exist? Though the term spontaneous human combustion is fairly recent, the phenomena has been described in many popular books on mysteries and the unexplained. In fact, there is nearly a dozen references to the people bursting into flames in pre-1900 fiction. Did you know that, Steve?
I didn't know.
The most famous example is Charles Dickens' 1853 novel Bleak House, in which a character burns to death without any apparent reason. In modern times, SHC has appeared in movies and on television shows, including The X-Files, and it's even sort of the superpower of Johnny Storm, the Human Torch in Marvel Comics' Fantastic Four. Breathe. In 1982, SHC was offered as a cause of death at the inquest in the death of Jean Saffin, 62. Relatives say they saw her burst into flames in her North London home, but coroner Dr. John Burton said there was no such thing as SHC and recorded an open verdict. In Galway Island, 76-year-old Michael Faherty was found burned to death in his home in December 2010. The coroner concluded Faherty's death was a cause of spontaneous human combustion, a human being catching fire with no apparent cause. So can human bodies simply burst into flames without any external source of ignition? Or could there be a more mundane and scientific explanation for the phenomena? Our guests tonight are Mark Rosney. Hopefully John Hall's with him. And later we will be speaking to Larry Arnold, author of the book Ablaze, where Larry details cases of spontaneous human combustion using eyewitness accounts. So that's what's coming up tonight. I'm going to contact Mark Rosney now, because he's going to be with us for most of the show. All of our guests tonight are on Skype. So as I said, I'm hoping Skype behaves itself. So we'll get hold of Mark now, because he's had a bit of research in this as well. And we'll talk about this around about 8:30. So let's get hold of Mark. But while we're waiting for him... Hi, Mark. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine. Can you hear us?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Right, just before we talk to Mark, let's just say hello to those that are in the chat room this evening. We've got Dave Liz. That's a new name on me, so welcome to the show. Ghost Rider 2873. Andy's there, so it's nice to see Andy again. And is there anybody else? Let's have a look. No. No, there's more watching than there are in the chat room by the looks of it. Anyway, good evening, Mark. How are you?
Very fine, thank you. And yourselves?
Not too bad, not too bad. Okay, so we're going to be talking about spontaneous human combustion tonight. I believe you've had an interest in this as well.
Yes, I have for quite some time. Well, myself and John Hall is with me as well.
Uh-huh.
Say hello, yeah.
Hi, John.
Hi, Suzanne.
Hiya.
Hi, Steve.
How are you?
Fine, thanks.
Good,
How are you?
good. Not too bad. Not too bad. Right, so what we're going to do is, Mark and John, we're going to start off with the observations with Steve. You can butt in on some of these, see what you think, okay? Are you getting a bit of delay as well, Mark?
No, we're fine here.
All right. Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, observations, yeah,
Yep.
from Steve, yeah.
Okay. Are you ready then, Steve?
Okay, here we go. I'm getting 10 seconds. That's what I'm putting.
Yeah, well, don't listen to it.
Let's just mute that so I don't have to hear it there. Here we go.
Go on then.
Let's turn that off. Here we go. Photoshop expert finds proof of ghosts. There you go. A faker finds proof. An expert in Photoshop and other graphic software has found conclusive proof that ghosts exist. According to Stephen Malley, the existence of ghosts commonly assumed to be human souls has now been established by a series of inexplicable photographs. Malley said, I first saw the ghost while scanning an innocuous set of family photos and worrying about my next mortgage payment. Then it turned out there was a small spectral child and an evil monk. No one had noticed at the time. I'm now rethinking my entire view of life, death, and possibly of human consciousness existing outside the corporeal form. How's
Corporeal
that?
what?
Form.
Form, okay.
Form. Corporeal form.
Okay.
Makes you laugh. You get someone who makes a living by faking things suddenly sees an image in a photograph and it's all changed.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I must admit, Photoshop has got a lot to answer for.
Here we go. Ghost rushes through fans at Bolivian football stadium during match.
Okay.
Footage of a shadowy figure rushing through a crowd of football fans while watching a game has emerged. It was captured during the Fox Sports live transmission of Bolivia's The Strongest versus Defensor sporting match in the Hernando Silas Stadium in La Paz, Bolivia, last Thursday. The figure appears to go unnoticed by fans. It glides past them from left to right on the screen. It also appears to be moving curiously fast, considering the limited room available in the cramped bleachers of the stadium. And before anybody said anything, I'm putting the link on now.
Okay. Have you heard this story about this football stadium, Mark?
Absolutely, yes. I saw the video as well. And there's a couple of things that I found interesting. The first one was that the figure seems to... but it cuts through people who actually sat down watching the match. Now, according to the blurb that accompanied the video, said these fans reacted to the actual apparition running through them. Whereas there's no reaction at all when you check the video itself. It's just like a shadowy figure runs straight across from left to right.
Yeah.
Nobody reacts to it at all. They're all concentrating on the game. And it's almost as if the one thing I didn't do was I wanted to check things like the sun angle at the time the match was being played, if the sun was out, what the weather conditions were like, because it does look suspiciously like a shadow maybe from a roof area. Maybe somebody running past the spotlight or something, enhanced spotlights or something like that. Or maybe the sun's shining down. I don't know. It's difficult to tell from the video.
Okay.
But it's certainly interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
It is.
Next.
It is. Gallipoli ghost captured at Soldiers Cemetery.
Gallipoli.
Gallipoli.
Okay.
This was written by Tony Wright. Dusk has settled at night. Was closing in on the beach cemetery at Hellspit on the old Anzac battlefields of Gallipoli. When Fairfax photographer Joe Ameo opened the shutter on his last series of pictures for the day and captured something inexplicable. Only 3 people were at the cemetery, or anywhere so far we were aware of, within kilometres of where he was. Guide and local author Kalal Boz told me. Kalal was standing amongst the silent graves, the only person no more than a silhouette in the gloom in the camera's field of vision. By the time the shutter closed, what appeared to be another ghostly figure had been captured by the camera. The shadowy silhouette of a figure in a wide-brimmed hat appeared in frame. In the foreground is a flower that grows between the gravestones. The spectral figure appears in only one of the series of the 3 identical frames shot by Ameo over 40 seconds. The camera angle had changed no more than 15 centimeters over the series of picture, and the shutter had been set for 2.5 second exposure because of the gathering dark. Ameo saw the unexplained apparition when he checked the frames a few seconds later. He could offer no explanation, but he said the hair stood up on the back of his neck when he showed Salal and me. We packed up and left the empty cemetery. Getting tongue-tied again. Ameo and Wakely, award-winning photographer of 25 years experience, said he had never seen anything remotely like the picture that appeared on his screen. Hours of close and skeptical inspection of the frame, including extreme digital enlargement, comparisons with other frames, and lively discussion of a number of theories about shadows from the flower, tricks of light and movement of the camera during the 2.5 second exposure, offered no conclusive explanation. It was simply a moment in a darkening graveyard 99 years after Anzac soldiers stormed the shore at nearby Anzac Cove, captured by a closing shutter. Now,
interesting.
You do have to look quite well at the shot.
Okay, so remember, guys, when you're looking, look really well at the shot. So it's putting the link on now for you.
There we go.
There you go.
All yours.
Okay, so what's next?
Okay, next we have. Now this is a good one for a change.
Okay.
It's a good news story. Feel good, this one.
Go on then.
Man wins $450,000 payout after a psychic told his mother he would win a claim.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Jamie Lewis was awarded compensation 23 years after he was born, unable to use his left arm following errors made by doctors during his birth. A man has been awarded the compensation after a psychic told his mother he would win a claim. Jamie Lewis' mother says she decided to give the claim another go after visiting the psychic. Mr. Lewis of Blackwood was left with permanent disability following a complicated delivery 23 years ago. He was born unable to use his left arm following errors.
What the hell is that?
Hola!
Sorry.
What?
Who's speaking Spanish?
Sorry, that's
Hola!
us.
What are you doing?
He was looking at the news report.
No, I was actually going. I went to the first link. The second link didn't work, by the way.
All right.
It didn't.
The photograph, but went to the first link thinking that could have been the photograph, and it just opened up on YouTube, and before we knew it, that was it.
Okay.
All ended in tears. Yeah.
No, it didn't. It's for some reason it hasn't come up.
Oh, right. You'll have to have a look at that
I'll
one
have
then.
to check that one out, and I will stick it on the website later.
Okay, so go on
Right.
then.
Where was we?
Where was you?
Teresa, Mr. Lewis, disability following complicated 23 years ago. He's born unable to lose his left arm. Doctors, during his birth, a law firm said, Fletcher solicitors said 23-year-old man had won legal case after proving a medical team at Royal Gwent Hospital, Newport, had applied excessive force during his mother's labour. They said damage was occurred to the nerves of Mr. Lewis' neck, which resulted in paralysis in his left arm and hand. His mother, Cheryl Lewis Thomas, first decided to pursue the claim in Paris Local Health Board when Jamie was 4, after seeing him struggle through his childhood. Jamie had a tough childhood growing up with no use in his arm. He was unable to play with other children, use his bicycle, and the appearance of his arm also made him a target for bullying. I knew the way he was treated during the birth wasn't right, and it wasn't any fault of his arm. Despite Jamie's disability, Mrs. Lewis Thomas said the law firm she approached refused to take the claim.
Mm-hmm.
Expecting to get some response from the same response from other law firms, Mrs. Lewis Thomas dropped the case until she visited the fortune teller a couple of years later. She added, I visited psychic in Wales and he told me that my son would win a claim and she could see us very happy. I thought we had nothing to lose, so Jamie decided to give the claim another go. She then approached Fletcher solicitors, who took the case and won the 6-figure payout in February. Acting solicitor in the case, Emma Jordan, said if the hospital had admitted the problem when it first occurred, then Mr. Lewis' recovery would have been far better. She added, unfortunately, it took over 20 years for Jamie and his mum to achieve justice for what happened. The compensation secured for Jamie takes into account the extent of injuries he suffered and his future needs, and will allow him to enjoy an optimistic future with his wife and 2 children.
That was a long one.
It was, wasn't it? Good news.
Good news for him then.
It's a good news one, though.
Makes change for, well, it doesn't make a change for mediums, so, you know, it gives them a good wasp name, doesn't it?
It does this time.
So
there we go. Let's hope that one works.
I could do with some of that.
Yeah, looks like Ghost Riders put a link up there for that cemetery one as well. Justice, yes, absolutely.
And he said he can't even get a brew. I don't know what he means by that.
That's because Liz won't make him one.
Ah, right, I see.
Okay. Unexplained intergalactic radio burst confirmed at Arecibo. I think that's how it's spelled. Anyway.
Oh, I bet Mark knows about this one.
I bet he does. Back in 2011 and 2012, astronomers working at Australia Observatory picked up a series of fleeting but powerful radio signals. These signals had never been detected elsewhere, casting doubts on their origin. But now new observations from the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico suggest they're for real. Up until this point, the only observatory to detect signals has been the Parkes Radio Telescope in New South Wales, Australia.
So what do you think, Mark? Is it
my
real?
mouth today?
Well, it certainly seems to be kosher. You know, it does seem to be coming from outer space rather than outside our solar system, I should say, rather than radio signals coming from inside the solar system, e.g., spacecraft orbiting the Earth, etc. So I think they've done the homework, and it does seem to be quite interesting.
Yeah,
they've actually changed their opinion on what they're looking for now as well. Because up until that point, in 2012, the SETI, the Certified Extraterrestrial Intelligence teams, they were looking for constant signals from outer space. Basically advertising their presence, advertising aliens' presence. And now what they think is that what they picked up are just radio bursts that weren't intended to attract people's attention.
Mm.
As in, like for instance with Earth, we beam out millions of megawatts of signals out to space inadvertently from radio and TV shows, etc., which travel through space, obviously. And what they think they've actually detected is because these bursts are spontaneous and they just occur here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah.
and they're not constant, is that they probably picked up radar signals, as in radar mapping signals from an alien world, who might be trying to send out radar signals out to map things like planet surfaces, like we do with Venus and Mars, etc. And that's what they think they picked up. So it's changed the way that SETI are thinking about detecting signals now.
Yeah.
So it's
What
very
does
very
it
very
say
interesting.
Yeah, I'm glad you know that bit, because that's not what it says on my little bit here. I find it very interesting that each of these radio bursts released as much energy as the sun emits in 300 years. That's a lot of energy.
It is.
Astronauts have all kinds of theories, triggering bursts including blitzars, overweight neutron stars that are resisting the urge to turn into black holes on account of rapid rotation. Other theories include magnetars, which are neutron stars with super strong magnetic fields of vaporing black holes, and gamma ray bursts. So that's a hell of a lot of energy being thrown out by these signals, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's sort of the scale that we sort of send out anyway ourselves. So eventually somebody's going to pick us up, but it's not going to be an intentional signal. It's going to be, I don't know, some of the first TV broadcasts that ever happened. They're winging their way through space now. Yeah. I don't know how old TV is now. It's was it 1930 something or other, before the Second World War?
No,
before the first 1920s, yeah, before the First World War.
First colour was 62, so it's
yeah. So basically that's travelling at the speed of light. So now we're practically well over 100 light years away. Signals are now detectable.
Yeah,
radio signals before that.
And radio signals before that. Absolutely, John.
The big question there is, will we still be here when they get them?
This is it. How many more have you got?
I've got a couple more.
Well, should we leave them until later?
You can if you wish.
Yes, please, because time is fleeting.
Apparently, my link don't seem to be working.
So, no, his link isn't working.
Oh.
He put a link
Andy
on.
said TV actually started before World War II.
That's what Andy says. And Dave Liz said humans haven't even covered 50% of our oceans. So to say that there isn't anything out there would be both ignorant and scientific. What do you say to that then, Mark?
I agree.
Absolutely. What we're tending to find now is that as we make more discoveries on Earth about the environments that life can actually thrive in, it just means that the chances of life out there are astronomical. They really are.
This is it.
Very, very likely. Life can cling onto the most dire of situations. It's intelligent life, though, I think we're interested in more than anything. But
yeah. So, Mark, spontaneous human combustion.
Mm-hmm.
So, where do you sit with this?
Well, I'm of the opinion that there is something to it. There's something, it can't all be explained away very, very easily, like some of the authorities like to tell us. I do think there is a genuine mystery here somewhere that needs to be investigated a bit more deeply than it has been, possibly.
Yeah.
Now, I got personally interested in it through a case that happened to me, local to where I lived at the time, which was over in Widnes. Back in, I think it was 1985, I think it was, and I was actually working for Holtborough Council at the time, and I was on a training course, a first aid training course, and the guy who was giving us the course, he was the actual call-out officer for any accidents or emergencies that happened, and this lady, young lady called Jacqueline Fitzsimon, she was a student at Holton College, and unfortunately, after a cookery lesson, she was walking down the corridor and spontaneously combusted, basically. She did survive for a while, but she died of her injuries a bit later on. But fascinating case, and I got first-hand information from the officer that was in attendance there that it wasn't all cut and dry as the official report said afterwards.
Right. Okay.
So that got me into the subject in a big way from then on. So.
Right. I've always been fascinated on how things can burn and not burn around them, you know. So this is I've been waiting for this conversation to come up, so we'll see what Larry has to say about it all. You said you had a theory, Steve.
I do have a theory.
Go on then.
Now, because of the tremendous heat required to actually dissolve a human body, and the fact that the rest of their surroundings and their extremities are still intact most of the time.
Yeah.
I've come to the opinion that instead of burning, it's more like an explosion. Bang! So it's dead quick, and like a backdraft or something, it gets smothered instantly. It hits the atmosphere, so it's burns and is put out just as quick.
What do you think to that, Mark?
Well, yeah, it's that certainly has some, something going for it. I think that the main effect that the people are trying to tell us that causes all spontaneous human combustion is something called the wick effect. Now, this is where if a body is wrapped up sufficiently, e.g., like some people have found, with dressing gowns and things on, they're tightly wrapped clothing, etc., and they're incapacitated and they catch fire, then they can burn slowly over a matter of hours, and the temperature can be very, very locally very high, but it takes hours for a body to completely break down. And this is what gets me about the wick effect. Well, for instance, I've got some figures in front of me here. Now, it's actually, when people are being cremated, when they're cremating bodies, the operating temperatures for the cremation is something in the region of 760 to 1,150 degrees centigrade. And even at those temperatures, you still have bones left over, partial bones. You can never, ever reduce anything completely to cinders. So the actual temperatures involved with spontaneous human combustion must be much, much higher to actually reduce a human body to ashes completely.
It's like Andy says.
That to me is the interesting thing here, that the wick effect can't explain completely.
Andy says it's like burning magnesium. One quick flash of fire and then gone. So that's his theory.
Mm-hmm.
He was coming to the
Have you got anything, John?
Yeah, there's a sort of a lap over here with the poltergeist type effect.
Yeah.
Poltergeists are known to produce fire and burn something, a drawer, and leave the rest of the stuff intact. The spontaneous human combustion has a very similar effect, localized burning and leaving other stuff intact, including body parts and nearby articles of clothing and stuff. So there seems to be some sort of connection between these instantaneous fires, I think.
Yeah, so like a pyrokinesis sort of thing.
Yeah, because also people are also known to produce fire type effects. Witches from long ago. Also, there was a case in Italy of a young girl who was accused of witchcraft by burning. And that case went on for quite a while. She was a nanny, and eventually she was released over it. But it was quite a big case at the time, and she was accused of witchcraft by the local people, of creating these fires. Again, it's some sort of super nature effect, which people have this within them, certain people at certain times, to create these anomalous effects. That's just creating fires, just one of them.
Yeah.
It's been the several science fiction films have been based around that, in particular.
Can I just ask, Mark, have you got the show page volume up? Because I'm getting a feedback.
Right, the show page is actually it's been the sound's down on it completely.
Right, okay, no problem. Right, we're going to play this advert and then we're going to get Larry on the phone, or on the Skype. Speak to you in a bit.
The Paranormal Intelligence Gathering Services Ghost Store is a one-stop shop for all of your ghost hunting gadgetry needs. Run by ghost hunters for ghost hunters, the shop is filled with all of the latest in investigation equipment, shipped in from all around the world, from high-quality digital dictaphones to EMF pumps, infrared illuminators to laser grid pens, CCTV equipment to data loggers. All of our equipment has already been imported, so you can buy it safe in the knowledge that there will be no hidden costs. And with our postage promise, you'll never pay more than the actual postage price. So visit www.the-pigs.co.uk/ghost store.
Yeah, that's a word from our friends there down in the East Sussex area. Now, guys, we are limited to what live stream can and can't do, and also Skype. So fingers crossed that everything goes well tonight. If by any chance you lose us, all you need to do is refresh the page, and if we lose you, we'll be doing the same thing. So please bear with us, and as I say, if anything happens, it's out of our control. So as I say, tonight's guest is Larry Arnold. I'm going to be calling him in a moment. Just to let you know, recognised internationally for his pioneering research in Forteania, phenomena that challenges orthodoxy. Larry is regarded as the leading authority about spontaneous human combustion. His investigations of SHC spans 25 years and several continents. So let's get him online, shall we? Hello? Hello? Is he there? Hello? I think we're ready. Hello?
Getting your headphone on?
Hi, can you hear me all right?
You're coming through really loudly, maybe with some feedback.
Yes, no, I've noticed that. I'm not sure where it's coming from, to be honest with you. But can you hear me okay, Larry?
Yes, you're very clear.
Thank you. Well, welcome to the KTPF show. It's very nice of you to spend some time with us.
We're delighted to participate.
Now, we've got Mark Rosney and John Hall on the Skype as well. So hopefully things will be okay. We're unfortunately we're limited to the technology. So hoping, fingers crossed, everything works well. Now, Larry, you've been researching spontaneous human combustion for quite some years now, haven't you?
We have been. Our interest began when we were in junior high school, which would put us back in the early to mid 60s. We're not that old. In the early 60s, when we picked up a book by Frank Edwards called Stranger Than Science. Mm-hmm. And in that book, Frank wrote a chapter called The Cinder Woman. It's about an incredible cremation that happened to Mary Hardy Weiser back in 1951. And as we went through high school and then later into college, we talked to our teachers and our professors about this subject now and then, and not one of them could give us any additional information about it. So after we left college, we decided to check in to see if Mr. Edwards had made up a story about the Cinder Woman or whether he had based it as a newspaper reporter on actual facts at the time. And we discovered that he did a straight news story reporting, and that Mary Weiser had indeed inflamed quite miraculously, quite mysteriously, and at the time quite inexplicably, in St. Petersburg, Florida, back in July of 1951.
Mm. So what is spontaneous human combustion, and what is the cause of it? Is that known?
Oh, wow, that's a double-barreled question. The first part is really easy. The latter part is a big challenge. Here's our definition of spontaneous human combustion. It is the ability of a person to smoke, blister, or otherwise burn in the absence of a known external ignition source, in the absence of high amperage electrical current, in the absence of caustic chemicals, in the absence of radioactive material. If you can rule out those external means as a source for the burns to the body, then we argue one has to consider the possibility of spontaneous human combustion.
Right, okay. And one thing I would like to ask is, she says after losing her page, that it seems to be a rare phenomena. Do you know how often it occurs?
We certainly concur with you in that spontaneous human combustion and its corollary preternatural combustibility are very rare phenomena. Thousands of people die every year in a fatal fire. of a conventional known explanation. Spontaneous human combustion cases are incredibly rare. You stand, based on our research, a much higher chance of being struck by lightning, perhaps even multiple times by lightning, than you do experiencing spontaneous human combustion. Our case record goes back to the 1400s, based on the medical literature that we've researched. From that time to present, we've got about 500 cases now in our database. So divide that by the number of people who are alive in those several centuries, and the odds are incredibly small that you will experience spontaneous human combustion. That said, on occasion, as you well know, people occasionally hit the big lottery. And whatever causes spontaneous human combustion sometimes strikes down those unlucky souls.
Right, I'm going to pass over to Mark Rosney, who's also on Skype. Mark, is there anything you want to ask?
Well, not at this juncture. I think I agree with everything Larry's had to say there. You know, it's a very rare phenomenon, but there is a phenomena there, and I think that's the important thing that we need to emphasise.
Right. Okay. We have a question in the chat room, Larry. Is SHC only occurring in humans, or are there any reports of animals combusting?
Wonderful question. Yeah. We do mention in our book Ablaze a few cases where animals appear to have spontaneously ignited as well as humans. So we're dealing here with a corollary phenomenon that we term spontaneous animal combustion, SAC, as opposed to SHC.
Right, okay. Now, you say, how far have you traced it back to?
Medically, in the medical literature, we have found a case involving a knight named Polonus that dates back to the latter part of the 1400s.
Wow.
If we look at mythology and legends and ancient history, as we do in some chapters in our book of Blaze, then we believe we can find parallels and very accurate descriptions to modern SHC-type fire deaths that date back several thousands of years. So in our view, this is a malady long hidden by medical science that has plagued mankind for millennia.
Right, we have another question in the chat room for you. Dave and Liz this time. All of the SHC cases, is there, out of all of the SHC cases, is there any kind of similarity with the person, i.e. skin, eye colour, hair colour, etc., or is it anybody could get it?
Your chat person asked something that we have pondered and tried to get a handle on for several decades. If we could find one set of common factors that were present in most, if not all, the cases of SHC-type fire deaths, it would be much easier to explain why this phenomenon occurs. We have not been able to do so. Clearly, the elderly segment of the population is more prone to experiencing SponCom based on the statistics and the studies that we have pulled together. That makes sense. You know, the body tends to deteriorate as it ages. Having said that, the oldest case in our database is a 114-year-old holy man from India. At the other extreme, the youngest appears to be a 6-week-old toddler in a crib in the UK. And based on some information of a case coming out of India last summer, that age could drop to even younger.
And they follow on and ask that could it be related to anything, any other illnesses such as cancer?
We've not been able to make a correlation between spontaneous human combustion type deaths and cancer. On the other hand, that kind of information is not collected by fire investigators when they file their death certificates. So we really don't know whether there's a correlation there or not. Simply, we just do not have the evidence to state that there could be one.
Right, okay. In the UK, back in the 90s, scientists believed they had found the secret behind stories of people suddenly bursting into flames. Using a dead pig wrapped in cloth, they were convinced that the wick effect was responsible. What does your research say about that theory?
Yes, the wick effect. Yes, the debunkers, the naysayers of SponCom have convinced themselves that the wick effect, in which a human body is ignited externally and then burns up in its own body fat slowly over many hours, in essence becoming its own human an inverted candle burning up in its clothing and body fat, is the explanation to explain away all these alleged mysterious episodes that history and medicine has labeled spontaneous human combustion. When we began our research, we weren't stupid. We thought, does this make sense? We did our own experiments. We could not get the experiments to ash in our burn sample. The BBC and other programs have conducted these experiments repeatedly on camera. The earliest that we know of was done by a Dr. McDougall Drysdale back in the late 80s, in which he took a sliver of fat, wrapped it in cheesecloth, and held it over a Bunsen burner. Of course, not surprisingly, the fat charred, and he claimed that this was evidence to explain away so-called alleged spontaneous human combustion instances. Given the fact that he did not include bone, in our view, made the experiment completely pointless. Since then, some other naysayers, John DeHaan, particularly in this country of America, has burned up several pig carcasses to once again prove that the wick effect can explain away spontaneous human combustion allegations. The first experiment that John did that we know about, he used an accelerant, a liter of gasoline, to fuel the heat of combustion necessary to cause the fat to slowly render out and sustain combustion over several hours. Given that the cases that we have documented do not contain an accelerant, that experiment lacks merit in our view. Subsequent experiments that he has conducted led to not only the pig burning up, but actually creating enough heat in the burn chamber to result in near or actual flashover fires, requiring the usage of fire suppression equipment to extinguish the blaze so the entire burn chamber or warehouse did not burn to the ground. Contrast that with classic spontaneous human combustion fire scenes in which the human body is ashened almost completely to powder, leaving perhaps part of an extremity, a lower leg, or a lower arm left behind to indicate that the pile of ash really once did belong to a human body. And yet there is no significant heat nor flame damage to surrounding combustible materials such as linens, stacks of newspaper, or paint on a ceiling only a few feet above the point of combustion that consumed the body.
Right, thank you for that. Talking about the temperatures, I've heard about the extreme temperatures, that it's hotter than mortuaries uses in the cremation process. Are there theories as to what can cause such intense heat? Somebody's asked whether maybe it's due to tumours exploding internally.
Well, that's a theory we haven't considered, and we've got about 120 in our book ablaze that we posit might explain various cases of spontaneous human combustion fire scenes. Tumors per se, we've not considered that. Don't know how that would work, but if your listener wants to share more information, we'd be glad to tell you later how he or she can contact us. We're always eager to learn more information because we do not claim to be omniscient about this subject, nor many others. We have looked at biochemistry. We have considered bioelectricity, aberrations electrically at the cellular level that could cause a tremendous amount of heat or electrical energy to suddenly release within the human body. Anything that affects the hypothalamus, which is the body's thermostat, causing it to go into high temperature overdrive, lends itself to consideration to explain these cases of intense localized heat, and yet a heat that fails to as we indicated earlier, damage or ignite or achieve the ignition combustion points of surrounding combustibles that are much more easily burned than is a human body.
Right. And concerning the heat and that, we had a guest on the other day, or the other week, who had a bit of a skin complexion, a bit dermatological. Or if that's the right word, and he was saying that you were coming on, and we said like that. He was saying that he's got lesions on his hands and that, and they burn and they look like burns. Could it be something similar to that, maybe?
It certainly could be, based on the research that we've conducted and with people that we've spoken to previously who have described to us similar conditions. We certainly can't diagnose his particular burns based on what you've told us, but if he'd like to contact us, we'd be happy to explore his condition further in detail off air with him.
Right, okay. Dave and Liz said all they're thinking of is that everyone is born with cancer gene. It is a mutation of something igniting, such as smoking, that creates what we consider to be cancer. Oh, it's Dave that I was talking about. He has arthritic paralysis or something. So that was the condition I was thinking of. I didn't realise it was you, Dave. Sorry. But yeah, so basically he said, could it be a gene of some type?
Again, it might be that the challenge, one of the many challenges with documenting and researching this subject, strange as it is, macabre as it is that experts already in the field who should be eager and curious to understand how this happens tend to discount it, tend to dismiss it, and tend to want to not talk about it, period. In essence, spontaneous human combustion is really xenophobic. So the kind of information that we would love to have access to just isn't made available because it's not collected in the first place. Whenever we get going down to Philadelphia here in Pennsylvania in the U.S., which had a number of cases that fit the concept of spontaneous human combustion, we showed up at the fire headquarters in Philly and asked to see the files on specific individuals. We had names, we had dates, we had approximate locations. And the chief fire investigator on duty that day told us that he couldn't help us, not because the files had been moved, not because the files had been destroyed over time, but simply because the things that we were asking about, the types of fires that we were inquiring of, do not happen. So what we did was lay on his table some photographs that we have published in our book Ablaze, and in fact a set of photographs that had just been handed to us a few hours earlier from a fire photographer / fire marshal in a nearby neighboring jurisdiction that fit the classic fire scene of spontaneous human combustion. And we said to this Philadelphia fire inspector, you're the expert, here are the photographs. The photographs are not hoaxes, they depict real fire scenes. Now, with your expertise, you tell us how to explain these fire scenes. And he got very, very quiet, very uncomfortable, and finally his response to us was this: we shall never forget these words, quote, I'd go out, I'd get drunk, and I'd forget about it, end quote. So unfortunately, with an attitude like that within the mainstream fire service community, and we find this quite often, we as a researcher outside the fire service community will never be able to acquire the kinds of information that would help us and help your listeners in the chat room come to a better understanding of how these deaths can be best explained and perhaps prevented.
Yeah. Steve, you wanted to ask the question?
Yeah, hi Larry, can you hear me okay?
You're coming in loud and clear. Thank you, sir.
Okay, as before you came on, I came up with a theory that instead of us actually burning, it's like a mini explosion inside that is there and then gone in seconds. And someone in the chat room said it's a bit like magnesium, where you get a quick flash and burn at high temperatures and then gone. Is there anything in the body that could cause that? I know we don't have that much magnesium naturally, though.
Right. Your observation first that this could be so quick that it would be more like an explosion than a simple combustion. Of course, combustion is nothing more than an explosion is nothing more than a very rapid combustion. In our view, has a lot of merit. In our book, we devote one chapter to the case of Helen Conway that happened here again in Pennsylvania back in 1964, in which, having talked to several firefighters who were involved at the fire scene, the command officers for the fire department that responded, and based on their investigations at the time, we've narrowed the time frame for the burning of Mrs. Conway down to 6 minutes, which is just absolutely outrageous given the extent of destruction to Helen Conway's body. Could there be a chemical like magnesium or diphosphane or an aberrant reaction to B12, niacin in the body that would cause the hypothalamus to kick into, high temperature overdrive? It's theories that we're looking at, nothing that we can take yet into a laboratory and quantitatively replicate scientifically.
Okay. Now, there's talk that this is regional. It's not all over the world. Is that true?
Depends how you choose to define regional. We have found the phenomena worldwide on every continent save Antarctica, and not surprisingly not there because not many people are living down there.
Right.
But having said that, there are clusters or areas where this phenomena appears to be more likely to happen. As the United Kingdom, based on our research, has more cases per capita of this phenomenon than any other area of the world, and because the geographic area of the UK is relatively small and at relatively high latitude, what we did was plot the locations of cases of apparent, spontaneous, and preternatural human combustibility, as well as other unusual, odd, unexplained, spontaneous fires, such as to buildings and structures, on a map of the UK and look for patterns. What we discovered back in 1975 is what we now call the cartography of combustion, in which about 83% of the cases of anomalous fires in the United Kingdom could be connected by straight alignments, sometimes connecting 6, 7, perhaps as many as a dozen strange fires. Some of these fire lanes or fire trackways span several hundred miles of the UK terrain, suggesting to us, and perhaps it should suggest to insurers as well, that there are areas, at least in the United Kingdom, that are more inflammable, more incendiarily hazardous to one's health than other areas of the countryside.
Right, I see. Dave has come back and said about going back to the health issue. He said if you have a look at WPW Wolf Parkinson White syndrome, he said he has an extra bits on his heart, so that if the electrical current of my heart jumps into the extra parts, I'm dead. I can't be resuscitated. So, could it be something to do with the electrical currents in the body?
We suspect very strongly that bioelectricity plays a key role in providing a very reasonable, rational explanation to many of the cases that fit the concept of spontaneous human combustion. That's one way to get away from, where did the heat go? When we show these cases to fire officials, their first question invariably is, where did the heat go? Why isn't the ceiling scorched? Why aren't surrounding combustibles ignited as well as the body? If this is indeed not an oxidizing type of combustion, but more like an electrical phenomenon, an electrical fire, then there are reasons not to suspect high heat surrounding the individual who's consumed, but it can also better explain, we submit, why this fire appears to be so localized and internalized within the victim.
Yeah, that was my next question. How is it possible that some of the surrounding environment isn't is largely unscathed? Is it a theory you've not worked out yet?
Well, again, it's either a process that does not produce a tremendous amount of thermal heat energy, or it's a process that is so incredibly rapid that if indeed there is high heat external to the body, it is so short-lived that there is not ample time for the ignition points of surrounding combustibles to be reached.
Now, I'm a layman, or lay lady, whatever you want to call me. So basically, thinking about it, if sometimes, you can get so much static within your body, and with the methane gas, I've had static for days, but if that built up, and with the methane gas, could that possibly assist it?
It's theoretically possible. The spark would be some aberrant electrical process that would occur in your body. Mm-hmm. If it's built up a static charge either inside the body or in your clothing, that might lead to spontaneous or preternatural human combustibility. We know that Professor Brian Ford in your country, in Cambridge, about a year ago posited the presence of acetone in the body as the mechanism to explain spontaneous human combustion. We applaud Dr. Ford for a very imaginative and creative postulation. However, when we spoke to him, we questioned whether his soaking of his burn tissues in acetone, which everybody acknowledges is highly flammable, it's akin to soaking your clothing and your body in gasoline, really, whether a living person could generate basically 100% concentration of acetone in the body. We argue not. Professor Ford said that he would have to experiment with that because at that point he had done only, basically supersaturated experiments using acetone. And our understanding is that since then, when the level of acetone is lower than 40%, it will not sustain combustion. we've conducted the experiment ourselves using what we believe are realistic levels of acetone, not more than 7 to 8% of body mass, and we simply cannot get self-sustaining combustion to occur using acetone.
Right, now Mark Rosney is on Skype. We were talking earlier. He's been connected with this type of case, haven't you, Mark? Would you like to tell Larry about it?
Yeah, sure. It's a case that happened in Widnes in Cheshire in 1985, in January 1985. And it was it's a catering student. She was just finished her class, and she was heading down the corridor of this college in Widnes, when all of a sudden she spontaneously caught fire. Now, when the coroner did his study, etc., and they did the what they call the
autopsy.
No, not the autopsy, but the inquiry. So the subsequent inquiry.
All right.
It was basically a death. It was death by misadventure, but there's certain factors that involved that seem to be glossed over or ignored by the guy presiding over the whole proceedings. He basically said, put out your mind the spontaneous human combustion. It doesn't exist.
Right.
Yet the pathologist from the Home Office who came to do the investigation, he basically said, I'll try and find some information here if I can. But he basically said that he was at a loss to understand exactly what had happened here, mainly because she was wearing flameproof overalls, and it seemed to be her jumper underneath the overalls that caught fire. And now, one of the things they said was that somebody she'd either basically touched a hot surface, and that basically caused the jumper to smolder. Or somebody actually set light to her, on the way down the corridor. But that couldn't have been the case because of the burns were only localized on her skin to parts of a jumper that actually caught fire. So in other words, it seems to be that the cause of the fire was not a flame to a periphery of the jumper, etc. It seemed to be it seemed to be from the body itself. I'm not making much sense here, I'm sorry, but just bear with a second, I'll just find some information here. Right.
So what do you think to that, Larry? I thought that people were asleep.
Well, while they're doing that, can I just say something here to let everybody everybody an idea of what we're talking about here? Yeah. Larry said that one body that it took 6 minutes to do. Yeah. Well, the temperature of the average crematorium is 870 to 980 centigrade. Wow. That's 1600 to 1800 Fahrenheit. Mm-hmm. And it can take up to 1 hour per 45 kilograms. That's 100 pound of body weight to actually cremate a body.
Wow.
And yet he's talking about something that happens in 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as I say, I thought people were asleep or something when this happened. Larry, what do you think? But this woman was walking down the corridor by the sound of it.
Yeah, we think Mark is talking about the Fitzsimmons case.
That's the one, yes.
Yes. We have some familiarity with it, but if you would be so kind as to send us what you know about the case, you may have some information that we're unaware of that would help us understand more about it. Very intriguing case. Well, again, apologies. What was your question, Suzanne?
I'd always thought that people were maybe asleep when this was happening, but obviously not.
Yes. Oftentimes, spontaneous human combustion type fire deaths do occur when the victim is asleep. However, they can be standing, they can be sitting, they can be conversing, they can be walking down the street or a stairwell, as in the Fitzsimmons case. They can actually be in a boat in the middle of a lake when the body will go up in flame and or smoke.
Wow, it's such a fascinating subject. What made you decide to research this?
Well, innate curiosity. As we said when we learned about this when we were in junior high school, we subsequently found that nobody else in the Fortean field seemed to be doing much research into anomalous fires. Lots of people were tracking down UFOs. Lots of people were stomping the woods looking for Bigfoot and Sasquatch and things like that.
Yeah.
But this fire mystery just seemed to be kind of ignored. And so when we started to assess whether or not it should be ignored, or whether it was something really mysterious and worthy of further pursuit, in doing so, we concluded the latter. And it became what we thought was going to be a fairly short life study has become a 4 decades long quest to document the phenomenon, to deal with professionals who should be better handling inquiries into this type of phenomenon, and then to obviously come to terms with understanding how it can happen, how it could happen, and if and how it could be prevented in the future from occurring to others.
Yeah. John, you're there. What do you think? What's your opinion on all this?
I'm just wondering if Larry's heard of the research of Livingstone Gerhardt, who postulated that geomagnetic variations of the Earth's magnetic field that will possibly have a bearing on the cases.
Gerhardt did some applaudable work back in the 70s, and I guess maybe at least in the 70s. Yes, we do follow up on his initial pioneering work, and we do believe that that's geomagnetism or solar activity induced through the Earth's magnetosphere can be a contributing factor in some cases of spontaneous human combustion. It's our present sense that, at least for some of the cases in our database, as we said earlier, we can't find a single causative mechanism nor a single set of traits that link all the victims. So we postulate that many different factors probably come together at different times in different locations to produce what appears to be the same end result. And in some of those cases it involves, as we said earlier, the cartography being in the right place but at the wrong time, perhaps overlaid with geomagnetic disturbances or geotelluric disturbances in that particular spot at that time, combined with aberrations in a particular person's biochemistry or bioelectrical body. All these things come together and then poof.
Yeah. John, you was mentioning something about poltergeist earlier. Did you?
Yeah, I just thought if Larry's had come across the poltergeist cases where there's fires localised and nothing else is touched, where that has a similar bearing to the spontaneous human combustion effect.
Yeah, the poltergeist fire phenomena. Are we still connected with you?
Yeah, we're still connected.
We're breaking up here. The poltergeist fire phenomena category is another area of fire anomalies that is just blatantly ignored by mainstream fire science. But it does have bearing in some cases on near spontaneous human combustion and may indeed be associated with a very few actual spontaneous human combustion events.
Okay, does that answer your question, John?
Yeah, there's a case in Italy a few years back of a young a nanny, and she was accused of starting fires in the village. She was looking after children and accused of being a witch. Have Larry heard of this?
Yes, we're aware of that case. There's another one in Italy, actually in Sicily, a couple of years back in Caneto, when an entire town had to be evacuated because things were bursting into flames spontaneously for no identifiable cause. The electric service was cut off to the town, and things continued to burst into flame. These cases, again, are like SHC and PC themselves, extremely rare. Extremely fascinating for someone in the porting field like ourselves, and probably for yourselves as well. And we're puzzled by the fact that so often they're just ignored, covered up by the mainstream fire science community. We spoke earlier about you spoke, Mark, about problems with the Fitzsimmons case and how the coroner or the medical examiner just said, SHC doesn't happen. We have to discount that. We have death certificates from some of the victims, and we talk about in our book Ablaze. Dr. Bentley, for example, a classic case that really blew us away and really convinced us back in 1975 when we discovered the case. Really had something to go for it in this area that needed to be further investigated. Dr. Bentley's death certificate said that he died by asphyxiation and 90% burns to the body. Well, in order to determine medically that asphyxiation was the cause of death, you need a trachea. He had no trachea. Well, all he left behind was a kneecap and half of one leg lying next to the hole through which the rest of his body ashen to powder. The coroner the deputy coroner told us that in his view, Dr. Bentley's bodily destruction was 99%. And yet there was no heat or flame damage to the ceiling overhead. An enamel-painted bathtub directly above the edge of the hole through which his body burned was not even blistered. We were at that fire scene. We stand by every statement that we just made to your listeners at that fire scene. Another case from upstate New York in 1986, a retired firefighter, George Mott, burned through his bed, through the flooring below his bed, and into the crawl space below. And yet there was no damage to the ceiling again above his bed. The ceiling was so low that we, being 6 feet in height, could stand in his bedroom and touch his ceiling, and yet there was no heat or flame damage to it. There was so little left of George Mott's body that, save for his head and half of one leg, everything could be, including the head, save for half of one of his legs that was left on the mattress of his bed. Everything, according to the coroner, could be put in a shoebox. You just cannot put a normal-sized human head in a normal-sized shoebox. And yet, in his death certificate, his official cause of death was also attributed to asphyxiation. It's just ludicrous. It's just ludicrous.
I'm still amazed at the fact of what Steve found out, the fact that that these poor souls are actually being consumed within 6 minutes, when if you're being cremated, it takes an hour for the body to be disposed. At least an hour. It's just fascinating. It's just mind-boggling, to be honest with you. We've got another question in the chat room for you, Larry. Ghost Rider John would like to know, is it possible, of all the cases that have been spoken about, that there's maybe a chance of finding any part to identify the start of the fire?
We wish we could answer yes to that. In most of the cases, and we have to say most because in this subject there seems to always be an exception to the rule, but in most of the cases, the point of combustion, the point of origin of the energy that consumes the body, appears to be in the solar plexus area, that is the lower abdominal region. Mm-hmm. And the energy that we presume begins there radiates outward rather uniformly in a fireball with a radius of about 1.5 feet. What is beyond the radius of that fireball oftentimes escapes incineration and burning to powder. So that's why we often find that these classic fire scenes of SHC, the lower leg, the forearm, perhaps a hand, or the upper head of the victim left intact, but everything else in between is obliterated. One of the naysayers of spontaneous human combustion, Mark Benecki, a forensic criminalist, has stated repeatedly in print and to us personally that SHC cannot happen because there's not one single case in which internal organs are burned more severely than our outer parts of the body. And his belief is that if that were not so, then we'd have evidence that the origin of the energy or the fire was internal. That statement simply does not support not believing in spontaneous human combustion, because with Dr. Bentley, with George Mott, with the case that happened here in the United States last year in Oklahoma, the victim there being Danny Van Zandt, internal organs are destroyed.
Yeah. So it's been, as you say, it's been going on for so many centuries. Has there ever been any scientifically studies or replications under proper observing conditions?
You're asking to put under scientific observation a phenomenon that is rare, obviously infrequent, the cause of which is not yet known. So trying to conduct an experiment under controlled conditions, just by definition, to us doesn't yet seem possible.
No.
Yeah, I'd like to echo with Larry on that one. Yeah, it's the same with most of the most of the paranormal things we understudy, that they're spontaneous, and we need to get a handle on the conditions surrounding these things more thoroughly before we can actually start to go to the next stage and investigate further.
Absolutely.
I'm wondering whether it could have something to do with the atmosphere itself. Or maybe that's a fragment of the ignition, if you understand what I mean. Something in the oxygen or something, and whatever's in the person, like static or some sort of thing, if you understand what I mean.
Well, fire needs oxygen to burn.
So I don't know whether that's the case, whether it be some sort of chemical reaction with something in the air.
May we be so bold as to submit and propose that there are energies and forces surrounding all of us that mainstream science doesn't yet recognize, let alone understand. There could be energies in the atmosphere. There are certainly energies at the subatomic level that are still being grappled with, and still we submit await discovery. The Large Hadron Collider has recently allegedly provided proof of Bose-Hagen, but we posited several decades ago that there is an even smaller particle that we dubbed the pyrotron that behaves very much like a neutrino, and as a result, it's so small that it can zip through the subatomic structure of your body and our body and everyone else's body on the planet unimpeded. But on a rare occasion, we submit that this subatomic microparticle has an incredibly high energy level, and if it impacts with a quark in the human body, it sets off an instantaneous subatomic to atomic to molecular chain reaction, basically what we dub the human Hiroshima effect, that can cause the body to incinerate instantaneously. We have been taken severely to task, that's an understatement, for making such an outrageous proposition, but it is based solidly on quantum mechanics, and all we need to do is know how much energy would have to be liberated, and consequently what size particle could do such a thing instantaneously. The answer to the first is about 34 million calories. That's a lot of energy. And the second answer is, when you crunch the formulas, you end up with a particle that is roughly 1.31 to 10 to the minus 31 centimeters in size. That's really small, and the Large Hadron Conductor is not capable of discovering something at that small a scale. Does it exist? We can't say that it does, but unless you want to throw out quantum mechanics, on which a lot of present-day scientific discoveries are being based, then you have to give consideration to what quantum mechanics has to say about spontaneous human combustion.
Right. Dave Liz has asked, would it be possible to contact the hospitals that do things like liposuction or removing stomachs or something like that, and use the parts that are normally destroyed to use for scientific research?
We don't know what the law says about doing such things in Britain, but that would be very difficult to do here in the United States. We'd have to get permission, obviously, from next of kin, first and foremost.
Right.
Going directly to the hospitals in our research has been problematic at best. We wrote to the Pontiac General Hospital in the early stages of our research because they dealt with an individual who was brought in for treatment under conditions that suggested strongly that he had his burns as a result of internal ignition, internal burning. Pontiac, he subsequently died in the hospital from his injuries. Pontiac General responded to our request for information by saying that they would be glad to cooperate if we could first provide them with documents requesting release of information from the patient. Well, they knew the patient was deceased, so we were unable to, meet their criteria for any kind of follow-up.
Right, well, the way you looked at it, they were going to destroy it anyway, so maybe. Mark, have you got any further with your notes there?
Yes, I have, but not on the Fitzsimmons case. I've moved on.
All right, would you like to?
Sorry, it's just unfortunately I couldn't print anything out today, so I'm working off a few screens here. Now, one of the things you mentioned, Suzanne, was any studies that have tried to replicate this, and I think there's one that everybody in the UK would probably be very familiar with, and that was studied on for a documentary series called QED.
Yeah.
And that was done back in, I think it was 1989 or something like that, anyway, way back. And they tried to basically say that spontaneous human combustion was all done by the Wick effect.
Mm.
Now, I did some digging into this program. I spoke to a couple of the producers, some of the assistants, I should say not the producers, but the assistants on the show. And I basically said, look, there seems to be some sort of discrepancy here, in the actual footage itself. And they basically admitted to me that they'd used basically a pig wrapped up in a blanket, and used an accelerant on the pig to start it burning. A bit of alcohol thrown in.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of things wrong with the show. For one, halfway through the footage of this pig burning, you suddenly any fool could realise that they'd used a different pig halfway through, and they admitted to me that they had difficulty actually sustaining the blaze. For this thing, it just kept on going out. So the actual end effect on the show, which they basically conclusively proved that it was, the Wick effect explains everything. It was a bit of a sham because they'd had to basically fudge the results themselves.
Why do you think, Larry, that they try and deter away from that as a result of the death?
And as we suggested earlier, the concept of spontaneous human combustion type fatalities is so distressing and disturbing and xenophobic to those in mainstream fire science and in mainstream medicine that frankly it's easier for them to either ignore the evidence or, as Mark suggests, and we'd really love for you to share more of that information with us, Mark, after the program, suggest that they are actually willing to misrepresent, and we're choosing that word very carefully, to misrepresent the evidence that they invoke to negate having to deal with spontaneous human combustion. The program that you described, and we know QED did a program back around 1988-89. The episode that you're referring to with the pig we think dates from 1999. That was an episode that we had involvement with. And the last thing we said to the field producer before we left our office here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, to go to California to film John DeHaan doing the pig experiment was, if Mr. DeHaan can achieve what he claims he can do without using an accelerant, it will be historically significant. But don't let him do the experiment with any accelerant. And as you said to the listeners today, what you see in the footage is John DeHaan pours a liter of gasoline on the pig. Mm-hmm. Well, our cases don't involve accelerants. So why was he allowed to use an accelerant in the first place? And if, as you suggest, the producers allowed him to actually switch samples in mid-experiment, that's even more reprehensible. Mm-hmm. We have worked on programs here in the States where we know for a fact that the footage that finally broadcast on air to the viewing audience does not depict what actually happened in the combustion experiment. We know things have been misrepresented. We know officials have lied about the evidence. There is so much in our book that has been lied about, and we just don't understand why that is. We've been accused of mystery mongering. We're not here to monger a mystery. We think the facts of these incredible fire scenes beg a mystery that cries out for good, solid, honest research and investigation. Mm. Sadly, we do not get that from many in the fire service community. And as we said earlier, the only reason we can posit to you as to why that is that this phenomenon, this subject, evokes so much xenophobia, fear of the unknown, that they would much rather misrepresent the data and what history presents to all of us than to deal with the facts and come to a broader understanding of how the human body, on occasion, can do this to itself.
It is very scary, I must admit, to think that it could happen just like that, basically. It is very scary indeed. But there have been some survivors, haven't there?
Oh yes, have there been survivors? And this is an area of our research that the naysayers really don't want to contend with. When we began our research, with one exception, it was claimed that all victims of spontaneous human combustion had to die. These had to be fatal fires. How else? You've got a body that's ashen. Nobody could survive this. What we have discovered in our research, if you want to accept our research, is that there's a subset of the phenomenon of spontaneous human combustion in which people survive partial self-immolation. They live to tell the incredible tale. The burn injuries can be anything from a first-degree burn, reddening of the skin, to a fourth-degree burn in which there is deep muscle chart damage. They survive the fire, the energy, whatever it is that produces the burn, self-extinguishes, and they live to talk about it. There have also been witness cases to this phenomenon. There are bystanders who will see this happening to others. What they most often report seeing is a bright electric blue colored flame or light, like you would see at the tip of a lit acetylene torch, that engulfs the body, usually from the midsection radiating outwards.
Now, you talk about your book, Ablaze, The Mystery of Fires, yes?
Yes.
Can you tell us, please, is it about your research or is it just about accounts of cases?
Well, it's about both, because the cases are largely the result of the research that we have done.
Okay.
That research involves traveling around the world since the early 70s, meeting with, speaking with, interviewing fire professionals who have had the unnerving opportunity to witness some of these cases firsthand. It involves doing archival research, going to medical libraries and pulling out cart after cart after cart after cart of obscure medical journals and textbooks from 100, 200 years ago, pouring through pages and indexes looking for cases that have been lost to history. We have found them. Many of the cases that we document in our book have been lost to history. They're not available anywhere else, except within the pages of Ablaze, or people have purloined or plagiarized them since the book was published in 1995.
Yeah. So, and whereabouts can you get your book?
The easiest way to obtain the book at this time is to go to Amazon.com, go down, look for Ablaze by Larry Arnold, and you'll see it pop up. You'll see some very fine reviews. You'll see some very scurrilous reviews of the book. Once again, this is a highly controversial subject that invokes highly controversial opinions. We're bemused by some of the postings on the Amazon.com website about Ablaze, because they indicate to us that clearly people posting some of the reviews have not bothered to read the book, or don't understand clearly what they've read in the book. We will guarantee to your listeners that if they have not read Ablaze or large excerpts from it posted who knows where, they will learn things they did not know about the human body. They will learn things they do not know about human combustibility within the pages of Ablaze, or you get your money back. We don't know any author who can make such a claim about a nonfiction book.
Yeah, I'll have to get a copy of that. So that would be interesting to read. Now, Mark, John, is there anything else you'd like to ask Larry?
Just if Larry is with possible fireballs and have an effect on the human body in the form of what is it?
You mean energy burst?
Ball lightning. Sorry, ball lightning. Could ball lightning have a similar type microwave effect, striking a person?
In our view, the answer is absolutely yes. We have cases in the book that are attributable to ball lightning, plasmoids, things of that nature. We can say that because the person burned happened to be witnessing the fireball come through a window or out of the sky and strike his or her body, or it's been witnessed to occur by others. If they had not been looking at the right place at the right time, they would never have seen the ball of lightning or the plasmoid coming out of the air and striking the body, so they would have been burned spontaneously and not know why. Some of these cases we posit can be best explained by external sources, but not known to science or not identified by witnesses. Other cases we posit can be best explained by something that truly happens internal to the body, and the burns are from the inside out. We actually had that in one of the survivor cases where the attending physicians diagnosed the burn injuries of Jack Angel, the survivor, as quote-unquote internal in origin. And by definition, that speaks to us of nothing but spontaneous human combustion.
Larry, there's another case which I found fascinating. It's from London in 1967. I don't know whether you know this one, the Robert Francis Bailey case.
Know it very well.
Yeah, and I think that's quite telling, because fire professionals actually saw this guy ablaze. And, you're saying about the solar plexus, and there's flames, blue flames, actually being issued by force out of a 4-inch slit in his abdomen. It was an amazing sort of case. So if anybody wants to check that one out, I think it's well worth a Google. Yeah.
Thank you. The Bailey case is mentioned in a blaze. And when we heard about the case, we contacted Jack Stacy, who is the brigade commander for the department that responded to that fire call. Mm-hmm. Jack happened to be soon afterwards vacationing in Daytona Beach down in Florida. He agreed, and we booked flight to fly from Pennsylvania down to Florida, sat down with Jack Stacy, and had him regale us with the details of that amazing fire scene that he and his men witnessed. They witnessed fire or a flame-like energy emanating from the abdomen of Robert Bailey, already deceased by the time he and his crew arrived. He told us that they emptied the contents of several fire extinguishers into Bailey's gut to put out the quote-unquote fire. And his professional expertise as a professional firefighter, the best way to explain the demise of Robert Bailey was by spontaneous human combustion. We could have sat in an armchair and made guesses about that fire scene. We chose not to do that, unlike many of our detractors. We invested money and time to meet with Jack Stacy and get his firsthand observations and experience about that fire scene. We have done that repeatedly for dozens and dozens of cases that we document in Ablaze, and indeed cases that have happened since the publication of Ablaze in 1995. That's how we conduct our research. That's how any good investigator should conduct research.
Absolutely. I'm with you fully on that one.
Larry, where do you hope your research for this will lead?
We say, partially tongue-in-cheek, that we would hope it leads to a Nobel Prize in physics and or in medicine. I think our research actually warrants that. That said, we really like to see mainstream fire science and mainstream medicine embrace the research that we have done, take the subject seriously for a change, and try to understand the nature of the energies and the forces that produce, on rare occasion, these absolutely horrific, macabre, and yet incredibly fascinating internalized burns to a small number of the human population. And as we said earlier, not just to humans, but to animals and to property as well.
Definitely. Now, your website is parascience.com. Yeah.
Correct.
Parascience International. Is it just dealing with SHC, or are there other things you're delving into?
We have a broad interest in Forteana generally. We've chosen, obviously, based on this interview, you can conclude to focus on fire phenomena specifically. Mm-hmm. We also have a strong interest in one specific aspect of cryptozoology, that being large-winged birds, so-called thunderbird sightings. We have a number of them here in our home state of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And if any of your listeners have further information to send to us about anomalous fires or anomalous large-winged creatures, please contact us through the website, and we'll be delighted to exchange information and ideas with you.
That's great. Well, Larry, it's been great having you on the show and for sharing your research with us and your opinions. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us on this Sunday. Please enjoy the rest of the day. Yeah, I'm going to pass your contact details to Mark so he can correspond with you on that case that he spoke about.
Superb. That would be most appreciated. As we said, we're not omniscient in this phenomenon. We need the insights, the research that others have done to help all of us better grapple with this macabre and yet so intriguing and fascinating phenomenon. You both have been very kind to us this afternoon. We have enjoyed immensely this opportunity, and best wishes to you both.
Thank you very much. Hopefully we'll have you on again sometime in the future.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much, Larry. Bye-bye.
You're most welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye, Larry.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, that was a good interview, wasn't it? What did you think to that, Mark?
Fascinating. I mean, that there's so many things there that Larry had to say that I didn't want to break into the conversation because it was fascinating what he had to say.
Oh, it was.
Few things that struck chords with me. One being, he mentioned hypothalamus as well.
Mm.
Now, I found that in my research for different aspects of the paranormal, the hypothalamus seems to be playing a key role in a number of different processes. With paranormal effects. For one, the perception of cold spots. And I'm sure we're all familiar with, as ghost hunters, are all familiar with cold spot phenomena.
Yeah.
Where you can be walking along down a corridor or in a room, and within one footstep, you're plunged into freezing cold sort of like area. And you can take a step out again, and you're back to normal temperature. Take another one step in. It's a completely delineated sort of like area of cold, intense cold. Now, when I've been doing my research, I've found that that the actual spot, the temperature inside the spot is exactly the same temperature as outside the spot, where you don't perceive it to be cold. But when you enter the spot, your skin temperature drops by about 5 degrees instantaneously, and you step outside and your temperature's back up by 5 degrees. So now it's no surprise to find that the hypothalamus is the body temperature regulator as well. So fascinating. And other research into other aspects of the paranormal, clairvoyance, precognition, etc. So all sort of other things that not quite on the tip of my tongue at the minute, but they all seem to invoke hypothalamus activity of some description.
Right.
Again, it's interesting to see that spontaneous human combustion appears to be, playing ball with that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I've sent you the email address via Facebook Messenger, okay?
Thank you.
And what we're going to do, we'll have a quick break and then we'll come back to you two, okay?
Absolutely.
We've got all the news right here. Don't go away.
Fed up of wading through the activities and events that other advertisers include? Find just what you're looking for at paranormaleventsforyou.com, your one-stop paranormal directory. Yeah, well, don't forget, you have the Evening of Mediumship with the Derek Acora on his 2014 Enlightenment Tour. You can find out more about where he's appearing at derekacora.com, and you can see Tony Stockwell live and find out where he's visiting near you at tonystockwell.com and click the events on the menu. Now, on the 1st of May to the 5th of May, over there in America, New Jersey to be precise, there's a mediumship seminar at Carl Street, Ponton Lakes, New Jersey, and guess who's going to be there? It's our very own Tony Stockwell. He's one of the most well-known and respected mediums from the UK, and he's going to be giving messages and doing aspects of mediums work. So you can find out more from within the www.journeywithin.org events, and you can find out more there. On the 9th of May to the 11th of May in Ireland now, there is a two-night ghost hunt at the Inniscothy Castle Hill, Inniscothy, County Wexford in Ireland. Join Compass Paranormal as they visit 2 great locations. There is a hotel with bed and breakfast with a great price for the full package, or you can book the ghost hunt separately, no travel cost included. You can find out more at compassparanormal.co.uk. Back in America now, we're in Philadelphia. I think that's where it is, PA. And from the 10th of May to the 12th of May, they've got the C2D1 Haunting Experience Bed and Breakfast at the Westwood at State College. J. Jeff Unger, who wrote the C2D1 journal notes, is opening his home to guests wishing to immerse themselves in 1985 events known as the C2D1 Hauntings, explored in films, TV, books, and etc. Among much more, guests will get exclusive access to the set from the award-winning film Please Talk With Me, directed by Mara Katria, about what Unger, Chris DeCesia, the focus of the haunting, and their friends went through. You can find out about this at j2ubooks.wix.com/C2D1 experiment. Right, back in the UK, on the 10th of May, Fort Halstead Ghost Hunt down there in Chatham in Kent. Spooksavers, they're there. You can find out more at spooksavers.co.uk and find out more about the Chatham's defences, which was against the territorial ambitions of France and Germany. Also on the 10th of May, Field Place Worthing, the Boulevard Worthing, West Sussex. Pigs, our very own Pigs, have teamed up with Worthing Leisure to offer you the chance to investigate Worthing's best kept secret. Reports of unexplained occurrences, including a woman in a black Victorian style dress, a military man, several ghosts, child ghosts in the outbuildings, and an old lady and a groundkeeper. For one night you can have the chance to try and experience these things for yourself. So visit www.the-pigs.co.uk. Also on the 10th of May, RAF Binbrook, Lincolnshire. That's Salisbury Avenue, Brookenby. It was a bomber command station during World War II. After the war, it was, amongst others, the home of the Central Fighter Establishment. The airbase opened despite being unfinished and soon became one of the biggest Wellington bomber air bases in the country. Eventually, it played host to probably its most famous guests, the Royal Australian Air Force and the Lancaster Bombers. Ghost sightings include an RAF, a full RAF officer in uniform, seen in one of the offices, who disappears as soon as he is seen. An Australian worker at RAF Binbrook base who blew himself up trying to sabotage a Lancaster bomber during World War II has also been seen. Check them out at www.simplyghostnights.co.uk, because that's who's going there. Well, that's it for the paranormal events for tonight. So, but there's many more happening in May.
So check out the one-stop paranormal directory for more investigations and events, available now. ParanormalEventsForYou.com also offers banner advertising for only £10 per year. See our website for more details. ParanormalEventsForYou.com, your one-stop paranormal directory.
Yeah, and if you just joined us, you've missed a great conversation with Larry Arnold, who was talking about spontaneous human combustion, of all things. And we've also still got Mark Rosney and John Hall on Skype with us. So, hi Mark, hi John.
Hello.
Hello there.
Now, for those of you who don't know, shame on you if you don't, Mark Rosney has been a big influence in the paranormal world for many, many years. Isn't that right, Mark?
Well, I wouldn't say a big influence, but...
Well, you have in the Northwest anyway.
Well,
It's a legend in his own lunchtime.
Yeah.
Definitely. Now, if you've been into ghost books and stuff like that and paranormal investigating, Mark, along with 2 colleagues of his, wrote a book. Isn't that right, Mark?
indeed, yes, yeah.
And it's not long been reissued, has it? Reprinted?
Yeah, it was reissued in January this year, so it must be doing well.
And it's called the...
Beginner's Guide to Paranormal Investigation.
Yeah, I've still got the big copy. So, because you've done all this for a while, haven't you? How long have you been in the business now?
Well, actively investigating for 25 years now.
25 years, God.
Yeah.
So, and obviously during that 25 years, it's obviously kept you going, hasn't it? You've gone through quite a lot of subjects in that time.
Oh, absolutely. Well, when I started, I was a UFO nut. I was well into the UFO phenomena. And it was only when I subsequently joined an organisation called MARA, Merseyside Anomalies Research Association, back in when did we start then, John?
90s, something.
Early 1990s. That's when I got exposed to other paranormal phenomena and the amazing interconnections between all the different phenomena. So that got me into the wider spectrum of all things paranormal. I've never looked back since.
Well, I must admit, when you're on one specific subject like ghost hunting, it does incorporate most of the others, like UFOs and cryptozoology, because they say that most of the time it interlinks, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think John will be able to back me up on this one. But there are some amazing sort of cross parallels between different phenomena. For instance, the UFO phenomena, and also with ghosts, hauntings, etc. You tend not to see UFOs or ghosts unless you're in an altered state of consciousness, e.g., you're relaxed, etc. It seems to be the case. You ask people what they're doing at the time, and they say, "Oh, chilling out, just relaxing." Sat there watching the television, mind went blank, and then all of a sudden I saw this thing in the sky, or I saw this apparition in the corner of my room. So it's interesting sort of observation for that one alone. There's other parallels as well. I'm just trying to think. Well, for instance, there's certain cases where people experience UFOs and then they see apparitions afterwards as well. And now that could be a crossover between aliens and ghosts.
If you have a predilection towards UFOs and aliens, I think that's what you see. And the ghosts also become alien-like. In that sort of, if you're viewing it in that sort of way, if you're sort of more religious, it becomes like angels and ladies in white and that type of thing.
So it's almost like there's a universal phenomenon, and based on your belief system, you interpret it in different ways.
Yeah. Now, we've got a colleague that, I say a colleague, one of our guests that have been on, that is into UFOs and stuff, and he was telling us that recently he went out and was looking through the night and took some pictures at a nearby church, wasn't it, Steve?
Yes.
And
sorry, I'm a bit away from the mic.
and he was talking to you about it, wasn't he?
Yes, he has actually been on the show and talked to us. He was visiting some people, and it was basically just across the road from an old church where we'd been taking lots of photographs, and so he went around the back and take a few more, and he wondered whether they'd set up a security light or not, because he saw a bright light over to his right, and when he took a picture of the area, it turned out to be a picture of a 10-inch long fairy.
John, that's your.
That's in the. I think that was in the York area.
Yeah, John, that's
York,
your area, isn't it?
Yeah. There's also just fairly recently there's been pictures someone put out of alleged fairies in Rosney Valley. We got a picture of all these numerous flying creatures, but it could obviously be insects, but they certainly give the appearance of the little winged creatures everyone's familiar with. And that's a fairly recent news report come out about last week.
That was a professor, wasn't it? University professor.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if saying it was the camera, a bit of camera magic or a bit of magic footage. But he had a pretty sort of convincing sort of to make people believe in the magic of what it is, what could be. I think.
Yeah. Did you say
Well,
something about
actually
you sent it to America?
He has sent the picture to America. He sent it to a lady who's done a lot of research and wrote books about fairies, and she actually said it's the best picture of a fairy she's ever seen.
Really?
Yeah.
And you're into this sort of thing, fairy folklore, aren't you, John?
Yeah, it looks authentic, but it could be insects quite easily.
Yeah, well, this is it. Fireflies and stuff like that sort of thing.
And sorry, Beth, a bloody big firefly was 10 inches long.
Well, you never know. So maybe it's a late dragonfly that's.
Well, you can let John know who is on there, and maybe you can contact him and have a look at the picture himself.
Yeah, that'd be an idea. What do you think, John?
Yeah, you can check it out yourself and make your own mind up.
Yeah. So
We don't like to dismiss anything unless we've had a good look at it. So
yeah. Well, his name's Alien Bill. They call him Alien Bill. So and it's quite a fascinating subject.
Taking loads of photographs, and where he's actually glowing.
His arms actually glowing. So
I'd like to see the photo.
Yeah, definitely. I'll put you in contact with him. You can find. I'll give you his Facebook connection, and then you can sort of like get involved with him. And
we will apologise now. He's a lovely fella. He comes across a bit eccentric,
but he loves updating.
But he loves updating you. So once you start, he'll just keep ringing you and letting you know where he is with his book and that.
He's been working with Malcolm Robinson as well.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, so, and he's writing this book where he's putting all his pictures in. So, but no, I haven't got the picture, Andy. I haven't seen the picture.
No, we haven't seen it yet.
So back to you, Mark. So basically, where are you at now? Because you was with Para Projects, weren't you? And then what are you actually doing now?
Preternatural.
Preternatural.
Right. Yeah, I've got my own little blog site called Planet Preternatural, where I'm sharing my thoughts and observations on various paranormal phenomena. But I've basically currently working on at least 5 books at the minute.
5?
I know it sounds crazy. 5, yeah. Not 1, not 2, but 5, which I'm beavering away a little bit at a time with each. And as the deadlines come, then I concentrate on one more than others. But they're not all paranormal, by the way.
No.
Just like to say, but I'm just doing intensive research on a whole range of topics that that really pick me interest, and it's one of those things that once the subject gets hold of you, that's it. Then you grip for life, and you're a slave then to the research.
See, I also remember you used to go out looking for big cats in the area as well.
Yes, wherever there's reports of anything, that I can actually actively get involved with, I'm out there. What got me into the subject in the first place, into the paranormal, was reading copious amounts of books and getting quite dissatisfied with what I read in the books, because questions that I wanted to ask weren't answered. And people seem to make amazing assumptions about things that that didn't seem to ring true with me. So I had to get out there, physically, actively do it myself.
Yeah.
That sounds a bit. Probably sounds a bit arrogant, but it's just that the stuff that was written down was wanting in to my mind, and I wanted to get to the truth of the matter. I wanted to find out how these things tick, what makes them work. What does make the paranormal tick. And
there's a lot of detail in various books and written by various authors, and you want to check it out for yourself.
Exactly.
You end up going to libraries and other places, reading various magazines and other people's stuff, and also going out in the field and checking out physically, whether the two things match up. And while you're out there, you're able to interact with the local people, and so you can find out anything more.
And you tend to find that when you do active research like that, you tend to find a richer story than there's ever been told in a book anywhere. So
I've been asked for your website. I'm trying to find it, Mark.
Right, well, it's all the W's dot Planet Preternatural. I'll spell that for you. It's Planet, and then Preternatural is Preter, and then natural at the end of it. .wordpress.com.
Right.
And in fact, I could probably send a link out now, actually, if anybody's interested.
I did have
Hasn't been updated for a couple of months because I've got a book contract looming and I've got to get that out of the way. So that's my phone. That's all we eat. But I've got lots of articles lined up to put on there, ranging from all sort of aspects, from time travel through to spontaneous human combustion as well.
Yeah.
For that matter. Yeah. So there we go. It's there. Yeah.
Okay.
WordPress.com. Yeah.
One thing I was going to ask you is, where have you been lately? What have you been ghost hunting or UFOing? What have you been up to?
Well, personally, I've currently been doing a lot of research in the library. I've been so away from the field and just basically doing intensive research. One of the things I'm interested in at the minute is we touched on it at the start of the program, and that's signals from space.
Oh yeah.
Because I think I've got interesting information about a case that happened in 1970. Happened in down south of England, where I think it was November 26th. 8% of the TV sets in the country got hijacked by allegedly an alien signal. And so I've been doing a lot of background research about this incident, because it seemed to be played down a lot by the authorities at the time. Nobody seems to have investigated the incident, which basically it was a TV station that got hijacked, and by a rogue signal, external rogue signal, broke into the TV broadcasting network and broadcast this message, allegedly from a group of aliens called the Ashtar Command, telling mankind to lay down the weapons of mass destruction. Now, this was a major breach of TV broadcast. It's basically piracy. And yet it was never investigated, and the culprits were never found, whether they be extraterrestrial or pranksters. So
Mark, 26th of November, message from outer space broadcast on Southern TV, Berkshire and Hampshire.
Right, there we go. So that's the one I'm currently looking into and ready to depth, because I found some key witnesses, and I think I might have cracked the case.
Oh really?
So that is definitely worthy of a book. It's too long for an article, so I'm going to have to get it out there as in book form, but I still need to do some key interviews, but I think I've actually cracked it, and so the truth will be revealed for the first time next year.
Sounds interesting. And what about you, John? What have you been up to?
I'm still currently investigating all folklore and haunted stuff on the Isle of Man. That's me. Current base. I'll be going over there end of May, June again, CT week. Well, the non-race days, I'm in touch with the guys who run the local ghost walks, and they supply me with a lot of stuff. It's not available in any literature, and go out on the field, looking and photographing various places which are hard to get to, and checking out the places myself. A lot of the stories they come up with are a lot more detailed and unknown, or from the not even published. So it's quite interesting to go along with them, because they get first-hand witness accounts of things that are going on, which I haven't heard of.
It's a very, very, very rich place for folklore, isn't it?
Yeah, well the fairy lore links in with ghost lore, witchcraft, and numerous other stuff, water monsters, and it just goes on and on. There's one particular is the Jeff the Talking Mongoose, which you were talking about a while back. That's still an ongoing sort of subject with me. I'm hoping to get out onto the site this year where it all took place, because there's still stuff going on there even today. They two guys who run the ghost walks, keeping us up to date on it. But one particular thing was quite interesting. He mentioned after the people that left the farmhouse on the Dorish Castron, it was demolished quite early. Now, people have speculated, it was knocked down because people would not want to live in there after what happened. It was quite isolated, and also didn't want the story to carry on. But it was a major story in the 30s, and still is probably one of the best known stories on the Isle of Man itself.
Really?
On the actual site now, there's very little to be seen.
Yeah.
There's just a few. Well, when I was there was a few bits of bricks and drain pipe fittings and what was left of the garden. It is extremely isolated. You can imagine being out there on stormy nights in an isolated farmhouse and all this stuff, sort of boosting up the supernaturalness of the area.
Yeah. Now,
sorry.
It's all right, carry on.
One other place I was investigating was a black dog, or the Moddy Do, what they call it on the Isle of Man, sighting in the 20s and 30s that used to haunt a barn just off the main road near Ballacallan. And when just recently, the barn had been demolished completely. So again, I don't know if there was any sort of supernatural activity still occurring there. But a lot of these places I go along to, I find it completely changed from previous descriptions, or they've been taken out of existence altogether. Where the stuff still happens there, I don't know. Well, one finish on one last one was Glen Alden, where numerous things happened there. It's where I took that stray photo of what appeared to be a green man in a tree. But last time I went up there, the farmhouse, the old derelict house, had been totally renovated, and the whole place had changed, the atmosphere from when I went up. So I was just pondering to myself whether the people who'd moved in there were experiencing anything, because it was right in the centre of all this activity. That's just an ongoing research subject all the time.
Well, you can't stop it, can you?
No, you can't stop. Once it's a bit like Pringles, once you stop, you can't stop.
No, this is it. Well, just to let you know what's coming soon, as a thanks to you.
Coming soon.
We've got Guy Lyon Playfair coming on, which you suggested, Mark.
Yeah.
And he's talking about twin therapy.
Oh yeah, very fascinating sort of subject. If anybody's out there, they've got to read his book about the whole phenomena. It's amazing.
It's his latest thing that he's really into.
So
are we talking twins as in twins?
Twins, that's right, yeah.
Wow, so
twin telepathy, I think we're talking about here, yeah.
Yeah, so he's going to be talking to us about that, so that'll be good. But next week we've got your old friend Tony Topping on.
Oh,
yay! Tony's coming back on, and everyone we put out. He said find out what they want me to talk about, and they've come back and said paranormal espionage. So that's what we're going to be talking about. You see what I mean? It gets everywhere, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It doesn't matter where you go; it gets everywhere. And okay. They say it doesn't get into cryptozoology and it doesn't come under paranormal, but sometimes people say that it does, doesn't it?
I think it's touched possibly every aspect of the paranormal at some stage or other. The espionage sort of thing.
Yeah.
Go from UFOs to Men in Black, and there's been suppression of evidence, e.g., what Larry was talking about before about appears to be some sort of suppression of official reports, etc., or they're basically played down. The spontaneous combustion. It happens everywhere. It really does.
That's the film with George Clooney steering a goats, which sort of had a comic line on the paranormal, telepathy and
remote viewing,
and the power of the mind. Yeah. But it sort of played it a bit jokey.
Yeah. So, well, thanks very much for coming on anyway, guys.
Well, thanks for having us
Thank
on.
you. Thanks, sir.
That's all right, and hopefully have you on again soon, talking about some subject or another.
Oh, absolutely. We were only talking before about we met up about an hour before the show started,
Yeah.
and we've still got loads more to talk about. So the paranormal is one of those things. It's a never-ending thing. You could start at the beginning of your life and you still be there 4 generations later.
Well, this is it.
Well, you're always welcome, guys.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, sorry, sir. We touched on Shingle Hall and what goes on and what went on.
yeah.
Which is a really interesting subject.
Yeah. Wind it up again. Just literally wind me up.
Wind it up again.
Yeah.
Everybody's been in Shingle Hall. We can't go because they won't do it anymore.
I know. It would be good to come on and talk to us about some of the cases that you've dealt with and some of the phenomena that you've seen. That would be great.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could present some of the evidence we've gathered over the years as well, which might be quite interesting.
Yes, definitely. Well, thanks very much for joining us. Give my our regards to Michelle.
I will indeed, yeah.
Okay, and you, John, you take care, my love.
Yeah, you too, Sue. You too, Steve. All the best.
All right. Speak to you soon, Mark. John.
Right. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, there you go, guys. What a night. It's been quite electric, really.
It has been good.
It's been a flaming good conversation.
Really enjoyed that one. They keep winding us up with Jingle Hall, though.
Oh, I know. But I must admit, though, this spontaneous human combustion has always fathomed me, and I think I will get the book just to have a look, because it's going to have cases in it as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you realise what sort of temperatures are needed and how long it actually takes.
You really blew my mind when you said that. What was it? 1 hour per 45 kilogram.
Yeah, which is £100.
£100 of body weight.
So it would basically take
870 to 980 Celsius.
It would take somewhere close to 2 hours to actually cremate me.
Really?
Yeah.
And yet that was done in 6 minutes.
Yeah.
That's, oh my God, that's just unbelievable. Well, as Larry said, Ablaze, the mysterious fires of spontaneous human combustion, is available on Amazon. I did put the link on there. There's a hardcover. It says you can get it for $18.44. So hopefully you can get it in the US. I mean, in the United Kingdom as well.
I'm pretty sure it'll be on Amazon somewhere.
It's got to be, isn't it? So, we should be able to get it on Amazon. Oh, I know, it is on amazon.co.uk. That's better. Let me see. Where are we? Does it tell me how much it is? Let's have a look. Bloody hell. New from $23.97. I think I'd rather buy it from America. So that can't be right, surely.
Then we get the what's it on there? The P&P and everything else.
So.
But how many dollars was it?
18 point something.
18 point something.
Yeah.
No, not coming up.
Right, what we got here? Let's see what you've been saying. Forgot to tell you, I had a dog that died of a SHH wolf and it was gone. Ha ha ha, John. Someone let him in the back entrance. I beg your pardon. In the kitchen area.
Yeah, a friend of theirs delivered the fridge freezer.
Oh right, I see, fridge freezer. So they've been talking about stuff like that. Mind you, I think I was glad to see that Dave and Liz and Ed come back on this week. Yes. Very surprised to see you, but it was really good.
Ed,
don't start on Jingle Hall, don't you be winding me up.
Apparently Ed wasn't happy last week because he kept getting his name and apparently it turns out he looks like him.
Oh right, okay. So you're going to wind me up and keep saying Jingle Hall.
Catholic priest.
Well, don't forget, guys, that's basically it for tonight. We'll be back next week.
This is where it's at.
And we'll be talking about paranormal espionage with Tony Topping. And as I say, please join us. You may be few, but at the end of the day, You are what we
Welcome.
need, and you are welcome. So join us next week, and we'll see you then. Thank you, and all that's left to say is keep the paranormal friendly. Good night,
Good night, guys.
To see in the night, to measure the spike, to see how cold it's been. I buy my kit so I won't forget the ghosties that I have seen. The Paranormal Intelligence Gathering Services Ghost Store. So visit www.the-pigs.co.uk/ghost store.